Come ye all, hear tales untold of Viking women, brave and bold, not just in sagas of fierce fights, but in daily deeds and ancient rites. They wove life's fabric, strong and thin, in a world where legends begin. Come ye all, to tales we spin of Viking women, let us begin. In popular culture, Vikings are often depicted as fearsome warriors, sometimes clad in horned helmets, embodying the spirit of wild, unbridled savagery. This image, though striking, is far from accurate. The Viking Age, stretching from the 8th to 11th century, was much more than just battles and raids. It was a time of exploration, cultural exchange, and intricate societal structures. Much of our notion of the Viking is thus only loosely based on historical truth. So how did this view arise? It stems from the 19th century, a period marked by a growing sense of nationalism across Europe, when historians and cultural scholars search for a glorious and heroic past. In this context, the Vikings were transformed into a symbol of manliness and valor. These historians were often driven more by the romantic ideals of their time than by historical accuracy. They envisioned the Vikings as heroic, wild, and masculine warriors, a portrayal that resonated with contemporary desires for national pride and identity. This interpretation, however, left little room for the diverse and multifaceted nature of the Viking world, particularly the significant roles played by women, who were all but erased from this grand narrative. But far from being mere background figures, the Viking women were integral to the fabric of Viking society, both the domestic and public spheres of Norse life. Viking women were responsible for managing the household, a cornerstone of Viking daily life. This role extended far beyond what we might consider typical household chores today. They were in charge of farming, producing clothing, preparing food, and raising children. In many ways, they were the glue that held Viking society together. In addition to their domestic duties, many women were engaged in craftsmanship and trade. They made intricate textiles and garments, a crucial aspect of Viking culture and economy. Some women even took part in expeditions and travels, as evidenced by various archaeological finds, including female remains with weaponry and goods that suggest participation in trade and even raids. That was the everyday life. But what about the religious and political parts of Viking society? What roles did women play in the Viking mythology, and how did that translate to the religious and political structures? In Norse mythology, a realm woven with gods, giants, and heroes, the stories of women and female spirits stand out for their depth and complexity. These figures range from the powerful Aesir, the goddesses, to the lesser-known but equally captivating beings, like the Norns and the Valkyries. Foremost among the goddesses was Freya, the deity of love, fertility, and war, embodying a multifaceted nature that defies simple categorization. She was revered not only for her beauty, but also for her strength and independence, qualities that resonated deeply in Viking society. The Norns were a significant trio in Norse mythology. Urd, Verdandi, and Skuld, meaning past, present, and future, governed the destiny of gods and humans alike, weaving the threads of life at the base of Yggdrasil, the world tree. Their role underscores the belief in a predetermined destiny, a concept central to Viking spirituality. The Valkyries, warrior maidens serving Odin, were responsible for selecting those who would die in battle and those who would be granted a place in Valhalla. They were not just messengers of faith, but also symbols of valor and dignity in death, reflecting the importance of warrior culture in the Norse worldview. These female figures in Norse mythology, from goddesses to spiritual entities, were complex and multifaceted, often embodying both nurturing and destructive aspects. Their stories and roles reflect a society that held a deep reverence for feminine power and its connection to the natural and supernatural worlds. Through these myths, Viking women found not only representation but also inspirations, as these narratives offered powerful examples of strength, wisdom, and agency. In real life, this translated into important religious and cultural roles for women. The most fascinating, in my opinion, is the Völva, the revered seeresses. These women held a unique and respected position in the Norse world, embodying the spiritual aspects of Viking culture. The Völvas were considered to be deeply connected with the spiritual realm and were sought for their abilities to foresee the future and offer guidance. They were believed to possess the power to communicate with the gods and spirits, a skill that was both revered and feared. The Völvas played a crucial role in both public and private life. At gatherings and important events, their predictions and blessings were sought to ensure success and avert misfortune. Their practices involved rituals and incantations, often accompanied by staffs or wands, symbols of their authority and connection to the mystical world. They also had significant influence in social and political matters. Their counsel was sought by chieftains and common folk alike, reflecting their integral role in the decision-making processes of the community. In a society predominantly characterized by physical prowess and tangible achievements, the Völva represented a different kind of power, one rooted in the unseen and the spiritual. Their existence and revered status provide a glimpse into the complex fabric of Viking spirituality and social structures, revealing a society that valued not just physical strength and courage, but also wisdom, foresight, and a deep connection with the mystical forces of the world. Women could also wield political power and influence. Historical texts, such as the Frankish Annals and various Norse sagas, occasionally mention women in roles of leadership and influence. For instance, the Annals describe Viking raids led by women, and many sagas tell of powerful female figures in Norse society. One such saga is Laxdæla Saga. It tells the story of a woman named Unnur, or Aud the Deep-Minded, who lived during the late 9th and early 10th centuries. Aud was the daughter of chieftain Ketil Flatnose and married to Olaf the White, king of Dublin. After his death, she set out on a journey that eventually led her to Iceland. There, Aud became one of the early settlers and a respected matriarch. She is notable for her role in establishing settlements, distributing land amongst her followers, and even setting up a matrilineal inheritance system, which was unusual for that time. The Norse sagas, though written in the 13th and 14th centuries, are a unique blend of history, folklore, and literary artistry, often based on oral traditions that date back to the Viking Age. Many historians believe Aud to have been a real, historical person, as she figures not only in the sagas, but also in several historical genealogies of prominent Icelandic families. Moreover, the level of detail in Aud's story, including names, places, and specific incidents, suggests a basis in historical reality. There is also archaeological evidence of women with great power. In Ribe in Denmark, many wealthy female burial sites have been found, indicating that women could accumulate and control substantial personal wealth. The presence of exotic goods in these graves suggests that some of these women were possibly involved in trade or had social connections extending well beyond their local communities. In the richest Viking Age grave ever found in the Nordic countries, the Oseberg ship, 2 women were buried in the 9th century. The lavishness of the burial, which included a richly decorated ship, exquisite textiles, and an array of artifacts, suggests that at least one of the women may have been a powerful political leader, possibly even a queen or a high-ranking noblewoman. The presence of a ceremonial chariot, a luxury item in the Viking Age, and the intricacy of the grave goods, which included objects from as far away as the British Isles and the Middle East, further underscore the high status of these women. This discovery challenges the traditional narrative of Viking society as a strictly patriarchal and highlights the important roles women could play in leadership and governance.
There were once women in Denmark who dressed themselves to look like men and spent almost every minute cultivating soldier skills. They put toughness before allure, aimed at conflicts instead of kisses, tasted blood, not lips, sought the clash of arms rather than the arm's embrace, fitted to weapons' hands which should have been weaving, desired not the couch but the kill, and those they could have appeased with looks, they attack with lances.
Saxo Grammaticus, History of the Danes, circa 1200. When the Viking Age was invented, so to speak, in the 19th century, the roles of women were diminished, and although strong and powerful women, even women warriors, have a prominent role in many of the Norse sagas, they were largely ignored by male historians. But in more recent years, the fascination for the so-called shield maiden has renewed, but is still mostly seen as a figment of the imagination of the authors of the sagas. But new evidence has come forth to shed light on this myth of the Viking Age female warrior. At the end of the 19th century, a Viking grave was excavated in the old Viking city Birka in Sweden. In it lay a warrior, surrounded by weapons, horses, and a board game, all of which suggested a man of importance. The board game suggested an officer, someone with tactical knowledge. The grave was long held as an example of how a Viking Age warrior grave typically looked. In 2017, DNA samples showed that the warrior in the grave was, in fact, a woman. And she is not the only one. Around 30 such graves have been found in Sweden, Norway, and Denmark. In Norway, a female warrior was found in a grave surrounded by weapons. Her skeleton showed evidence of battle wounds, such as a skull wound likely caused by a sword. A reconstruction of her face was made in 2019. Historians still debate the existence of shield maidens, although I personally think this evidence suggests that they did indeed exist. However, it was probably not a common occupation, but rather a few women from the higher societal classes that could gain a military position due to their qualifications. In the next video, we shall talk about the end of the Viking Age, women's role in the Christianization of the Nordic countries, and how the new religion affected their lives. Subscribe to be sure not to miss it.